What if you could read the entire instruction manual for a human being? I mean, every single letter of our genetic code, just laid bare. That was the incredible dream behind the Human Genome Project. But here's the thing. When you open that book, you don't just find cures for diseases. You also find secrets. And those secrets could be used against you. All right, so let's get into this. And let's make this really personal, right off the bat. Imagine you're applying for your dream job. Or maybe you're trying to get health insurance for your family. Now, what if you were turned down not because of your resume or your current health, but because a genetic test showed you might get sick someday in the future? This wasn't some sci-fi plot, it was the very real fear that came hand in hand with mapping our DNA.
So where did all this power and this peril come from? Well, it all started with the Human Genome Project, or HGP for short. Kicked off back in 1990, this was one of the most ambitious things science had ever tried to do. A massive global effort to read our entire genetic blueprint from A to T, C to G.
And the scale of it is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. The goal was to sequence all 3.2 billion base pairs. Those are the individual letters of our DNA. To put that into perspective for you, if you tried to read that code out loud, 1 letter per second, without stopping for anything, it would take you almost 100 years. The HGP wanted to map every last one. But see, the project's goals went way beyond just the science. Of course, they wanted to map our genes and create faster tech. And incredibly, they were committed to making all of that data public. But the real game changer, the thing no one had ever done before on this scale, was that last point. From day one, they built in a program specifically to study the ethical, legal, and social fallout of their own work. I mean, that was just revolutionary. And thank goodness they did, because man, was it necessary. Cracking our genetic code was a classic double-edged sword. This amazing new knowledge wasn't just a scientific trophy. It was a Pandora's box, filled with all kinds of personal and societal risks that science had never really had to deal with before. And this right here lays out the central conflict perfectly. On one side, you have this incredible promise, right? We can find the genes for diseases, create medicine tailored specifically to you. But on the other side, the peril was just as massive. Could that same information be used by a company to not hire you, or by an insurer to deny you coverage? The very knowledge that could save your life could also ruin it. So what do? You know your own work could cause huge problems for people. Well, the leaders of the Human Genome Project did something incredibly smart. They created an ethical watchdog from inside the project itself. It was designed to study and get ahead of the societal impact of their research while it was still happening. They gave it a name, ELSI. It stands for Ethical, Legal, and Social Issues. Now, the key thing to understand here is that this wasn't some little committee they tacked on at the end to look good. No, ELSI was a core, funded, integral part of the Human Genome Project, tasked with tackling the tough issues like genetic privacy and discrimination head-on. And this is the kicker. For the first time in history, a massive science project put its money where its mouth was. It took a significant slice of its budget, millions of dollars, and dedicated it not to more lab work, but to asking, what are the consequences of what we're doing, and how can we get in front of them? Okay, so it's one thing to study problems, but how do you actually create solutions? Well, that's where Elsie really shined. It was never just an academic exercise. The whole point was to lay the groundwork for real-world protections that could help everyday people. You can literally see the pathway they took. First, ELC research confirmed that yes, the fear of genetic discrimination was very real and a huge problem. So they funded more research and started public conversations to raise awareness. All of that work created the foundation, the evidence that lawmakers needed to finally take action, which eventually led to landmark legislation. And here it is, the payoff. This quote makes it crystal clear. The work done by the ELSI program was a key driver in creating laws like GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act in the United States. This is the law that says employers and health insurers can't use your genetic info to make bad decisions about you. That's a direct line from scientific foresight to legal protection. But this isn't just a history lesson. The work that started with the HGP, the questions that Elsie first asked, they are more critical today than they have ever been. We are now living in the exact world that those researchers were trying to predict. Seriously, think about it. 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, our genetic data is everywhere now.
The ethical framework that the HGP pioneered with its ELSI program is the very foundation we still rely on to navigate this crazy new world. They showed us all that science has a responsibility not just to discover things, but to think deeply about the consequences.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The HGP gave us the map, and ELSI gave us the first set of rules for the road. But as this information gets more and more powerful, more and more widespread, the really big question remains. Who gets to be the ultimate gatekeeper of your instruction manual? You? Your doctor? A company? The government? That's the question we are all trying to answer right now.